Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit here on your 2020 Ford Escape. So what does a diode wiring kit actually do? Well, it may be pretty straightforward to others, but some of you may not know. Essentially, it's going to be transferring the signals from our motorhome to that of our towed vehicle. So the reason that's important is when we're out driving on the road, you may not be able to see the motorhome lights when you're driving behind, or they may not be that visible. So by transferring the signals to our actual towed vehicle here, we're going to be much safer, let others around us know what's going on. It's also a requirement in pretty much all states. So as you can see now, we have our hazards displaying, meaning we have the left and right turn signals flashing, or rather the brake lights. However, we are going to get the other features needed for basic lighting operation, such as the brake lights, as well as the tail light signals. So this is what our wiring kit is going to look like installed. Now, what I mean by that is that we're using the actual factory bulbs in the factory taillight housing. Therefore, everything is going to be integrated into one. We don't have to worry about having any separate lights on the vehicle. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the magnetic lights that actually sit on top of the roof there. We don't have to worry about that bulky, cluttery design here because everything is integrated into one, which is why I actually prefer this diode wiring kit over some of the other options on the market, being that everything is just seamless, one integrated package. So as we are utilizing the factory taillight bulbs here, you do have to make a couple splices into the wires, but not to worry, we don't have to worry about damaging or risking damage to the vehicle. We're going to have these nice little built-in diodes on each circuit there, which is going to prevent the backfeed of electricity. Therefore, we don't have to worry about any issues with the lighting on the motorhome carrying over and affecting our lights on the vehicle. Everything is going to be separated out so we can retain the factory functionality of our Escape here, no matter what the circumstances are. So in order to bridge the connection from our motorhome to our towed vehicle here, you will need an umbilical cord. Now the kit thankfully comes with this. However, you do have a couple options in regards to which one you want to go with. You have the completely straight umbilical cord, which is what we have installed here. You have a coiled umbilical cord, which you see over here. And then we actually have a hybrid between the two, which is a coiled and a straight umbilical cord. And that's what we have here. So I'm sure you're asking now, what are the differences between those different umbilical cords? And how do you find the right one for you in your setup? Well, it's pretty easy. It's going to come down to what tow bar we have. So our particular tow bar here has these little metal channels built into the actual tow bar arms that we can slide our umbilical cord through. Because the name of the game here is preventing damage to the electrical cable, preventing it from dragging on the road. So since we have these built-in channels with our tow bar, we're going to want to utilize these with a straight umbilical cord. So say we have a tow bar that doesn't have these integrated channels or clips for the electrical connector, that's when we'd want to go ahead and go with the coiled one. So we'll go ahead and show you the coiled one, but essentially what the coiled design does is it prevents the extra slack we have, therefore we don't have to worry about our cable dragging the ground. We can easily show you what that looks like now. So we'll plug that in, and we'll just simply route this over to where the 6-way is mounted on the vehicle. So there you can see, we have the coil design here, which is keeping it nice and flush to the bottom of the tow bar there. That way we don't have to worry about it drooping down, dragging on the ground, and becoming damaged. So, and then the last option that we have for an umbilical cord is the hybrid one that has a straight portion, which again is going to require that we have a channel on our tow bar for the cable to slide through. And then the coiled portion after it leaves the tow bar arms and attaches to the RV. So some situations you may want this, say the arms on our tow bar are a little bit longer than normal, or what you can see here, we're using a high-low adapter that's going to extend the connection point. We could have more of a chance for slag here once it leaves the tow bar arms and attaches to RV. Therefore, the coiled portion here is just going to give us more security, keeping it nice and tight to the bottom of the tow bar and reducing the chance for it to drag on the ground. So in addition to the umbilical cord, You're also going to get a 6-pole connector here, which you can see included in your kit. So what I like about this, it's obviously going to carry all the basic signals we have, such as those for the stop turn signal circuits as well as the running light. We also have a few extra pins which we can use for things such as a battery charge line, or we can actually use it to run the monitor light for the braking system, depending on what braking system we're using. So it's that much more versatile, and it gives us more options that we don't have to worry about running extra cables with our tow bar setup. So in regards to installation, this one isn't too bad. We're going to have to pin our trailer connector here at the front of the vehicle. We're going to have to run a wire from the front to the rear, and then we're going to have to splice into the circuits directly behind our taillights. Now honestly, the hardest part of this is just fitting the taillights back on once we've spliced our diodes in line, because there isn't a ton of room there, but thankfully there still is enough space that we can reinstall our taillights into the factory position. So the first step of our installation, we're going to take our bonded 4-pole here. We need to tie this off to a point on our base plate kit, preferably where we're going to be mounting our electrical connector. Our particular base plate kit here has these 2 tabs which are designed for this exact purpose. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit extra wire to work with, and we're going to tie it off here. Now we're going to take the other end and wrap that all the way back to the rear of the vehicle to where our taillights are. We'll show you the path we took. But essentially, we use the included wire loom that comes in our kit here for this first couple feet or so. We're going to have some points here we want to make sure we tie it to keep it away from any of the components such as the active air shutters. If your particular vehicle comes equipped with that, you want to make sure that you have the wires as far away from that as possible. So we've got a couple zip ties in here securing it to the base plates, and then I have it ran in between this little opening here. Now if we come on the inside, pretty much what you're going to see for the rest of the way is just zip ties securing it to existing points. We used a hole in the frame here. We have it ran here. This is all going to be covered. We have a panel that installs over this, so you don't have to worry about this showing or being exposed to the road. So again, another point here, we have a zip tie, and then we've come over this cross member. You can kind of see our wire here. So from here on back, we have it hidden behind this panel here. In order to remove that, we're going to have 1 Torx screw here, and then we're going to have several of these little nuts, these metal nuts here. They're real thin. We'll just take a 10mm socket. You don't need to remove them all. There's going to be a couple along the outside edges in the center here. We're just going to peel this panel down so we can run our wire up and over this. And I zip tied it to a couple of the existing lines up above this panel. And then we just have it ran from all the way here back. And then if we look straight up here, so directly back here by the rear suspension, we can kind of see our bonded 4-pole. We ran that up and over the rear cross member. I have a couple zip ties securing it. And then we have it ran pretty much to the back of the vehicle over the cross member. So as you can see here is the rest of our wiring. We just came out a little panel right here, ran it up and over there, and just used more zip ties to secure it in place. But now we're going to go ahead and remove our taillights so we can make our connections with the diodes. So now we're going to open up the hatch here on our vehicle. We're going to be removing the taillights because we're going to be splicing into the wires behind them. So it's super easy to do this. Inside here in this little pocket, we're going to have this black cover here, and then we're going to have this little insert that pops out. If we just take a flat braid screwdriver, should be able to pop it out like so. And now we're going to take a T25 Torx bit, and we're going to remove that 1 bolt there. And now we can actually pry the taillight assembly off the vehicle. So in order to remove the taillight housing, we're actually going to be pulling out away from the vehicle, just like so. And now we're going to have a few wires here we need to disconnect. So we'll just simply turn these counterclockwise to release them. Some of them are pretty tight. So if you have ones you can't get by hand, just take a pair of pliers, make sure we grab that center section there and turn it to release. Now I will say this one actually doesn't become, we're not going to unplug this one because there isn't an actual bulb to take out, so we're just going to actually have to hang it down like this. We're going to do this on both sides. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and test these wires here so we can determine which carries which circuit here. So we've already fortunately went ahead and did this for you guys. So we can go ahead and point these out now. We will show you how to make the connections as well. But this red wire here going to this amber bulb, this is going to be the power wire for our turn signal. Now this vehicle has separate stop and turn signal circuits, so there's going to be another wire for the stop, and that's going to be the purple wire here, and then the yellow wire is going to be for our running light circuit. So that's the connections we're going to make here behind the taillights. We're going to begin installing our diodes now. Just a heads up, the wire colors are going to be the same on both sides. So we identified the purple wire is the stop light wire. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to find about the midway point here, maybe a little bit closer to the grommet. We're just going to go ahead and cut this in half here. Then we're going to take a pair of strippers. We're going to strip back about 1/4 inch of the conduit off each side here. Just like that. And now we're going to take one of our diodes here. We're going to take off one of the blue Spade terminals. We're going to crimp that on to both sides of our wire. So these wires are pretty small, so you want to make sure you get a good crimp here. Just go ahead and give that a nice little tug to make sure it's secure. Now that we have that on, what we're going to do next is we're going to pull our wires up underneath into our taillight pocket here, because that's when we're going to begin splicing into them. So we got our wires pulled up into the taillight pocket here. What I'm going to do is, since we're working on the driver's side, I'm going to separate the yellow wire from our bonded pole here. I'm going to be attaching that to the diode that goes in between the two purple wires. The next connection we're going to make is to the running light circuit. So we're going to go ahead and cut the yellow wire. So we've got a Spade terminal on both of our yellow wires here. So we're going to take the brown wire for the running light circuit. And after we cut that, what we're going to be doing is we need to run a jumper wire from this side to the other side. So I'm going to take the extra of the wire that I just cut off, and I'm going to tie that into this here before I attach it to the butt connector. Because then, along with the green wire, we'll run that over to the other side of the vehicle. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. So you want to make sure that you use the yellow Spade terminal here when we join those two wires. And now we can install our diode. So next we're going to address the white wire over here. That's going to be at ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a spot inside the taillight housing here, probably around this area, that we can install a ring terminal and use a self-tapping screw to ground that to the vehicle's body. So now, as we said, we're going to take our brown wire and our green wire, we're going to route that over to the other side of the vehicle. I just used a simple pull wire technique, took a piece of Airline tubing, shoved it down through the bumper there, came out underneath, and now I can pull the pull line through when I tape our wires to this. So we got our green and brown wires routed over here to the passenger side of the vehicle. Now, in regards to the path we took to get here, there's going to be a large heat shield running across the center of the vehicle. We're simply going to run it over that to secure it. We zip tied it to a few of the existing wires as well to keep it from drooping down. But now once we have it in the taillight pocket here, we can go ahead and make our connections. You may or may not need to extend the wires a little bit. It just depends on how much slack you gave yourselves when you're running the wires. But as far as the connection goes, it's pretty easy. We have our brown wire here, which is going to splice into the yellow wire. So the same process we did on the other side, same color as well. And then the green wire, that's for the stop/turn signal, that'll splice into the purple wire. Now we're going to reinstall our taillights. So now that we have our fascia on, we went ahead and pulled our wires that we left a little extra for ourselves. We pulled them through an opening in the fascia here. So depending on what base plate kit you're using, a lot of them have these two little prongs here that will be used to actually secure the connector. So we can thankfully utilize them. What I'm going to do now is, we gave ourselves extra wire, which is good, but now I can actually go ahead and cut that extra wire off because we don't need it all. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the boot here on the back of the connector. I'm going to simply slide that on over our wires. Now I'm going to begin stripping each of these wires about a 1/4 inch of the jacket off. So keep in mind that black wire that you see there, we're going to be installing that as well. You're probably not going to have that because we're using it, it's part of our braking system for the monitor light. So you can just disregard that one. Now that we have all of our wires stripped, I'm going to go ahead and just twist all the strands there so we don't get any loose ones that are jumping circuits on us. But then we're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver, like the one you see here. And then we can begin making our connections to the back of the connector. So let's start with the yellow wire here. That'll go into the terminal labeled LT. So we want to go ahead and loosen this screw a little bit. We don't want to remove it completely because they are kind of hard. They're kind of small, easy to lose. But we'll insert the wires in there, and then we'll just simply tighten it down. And then we're going to repeat that process for the rest of our wires. So now that we have all of our connections made, it's good practice to take some silicone here and just seal up all the terminals. This is on the front of the vehicle, so it's likely water can get in here. You want to make sure that water doesn't cause any issues. And then we can take our boot here and slide it over. Now we're going to attach our connector to the two prongs on our base plate kit here, or whatever means you have to attach it. And now we're going to finish up the inside with some dielectric grease, but then we can go ahead and just test everything out to make sure it's all working. So first we're going to start with our taillights, our left turn, our brake lights, and then our right turn. So there you go. Now we know everything is functioning correctly, therefore the installation was correct. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit here on your 2020 Ford Escape.